Hey everyone. I'm gonna try and have the comments up. If someone can just comment and let me know, can you hear me? Can you see me? Is everything good to go? I'm just gonna wait a minute just as people kind of trickle in here before we get started. All right, so my husband's giving me a thumbs up, so I think we're good to go. So, hi, I am Lauren from A Girl and Her Wool, and today we're gonna be doing a dye with me. So I have, you can see the tripod here, we're gonna be dyeing up the exclusive colorway for the Pigskin Party. So thank you everyone, everyone's saying they can hear me, good. I have to remember this is delayed. So I am going to just grab some samples that I dyed up, and I want to get the dyeing going so we can get it done within this hour. And then I'm going to kind of talk about me and my business, answer any questions you guys might have as I'm dyeing and as I'm kind of doing things. And then if we do finish early, we can do a little Q&A session at the end too. So let me just go grab my samples and show those off. So, and before I show the samples, one thing I just wanted to mention really quick is that this isn't a private Zoom, and so there is a live chat. I am going to be asking you guys for suggestions and your opinions, and so because I'm putting you all out there, I just want to let you guys all know this is a safe space. I think that, like my brand, A Girl and Her Wool, right now I'm representing Jen and her brand with Down Cellar Studio podcast, all kind of push for safe spaces. Everyone is welcome. So if you see something that someone says, you disagree with it, just move on, make your suggestion. Again, my husband's here helping me try to moderate comments because I'm gonna be at the dye pot. So just, you know, let's keep it nice, friendly, and all have fun with this. So that being said, I dyed up some samples that we can look at. So if we like any of these, this can be the exclusive colorway we dye. So let me I'll show them all and then we'll kind of go through them one at a time. And again, if you are just joining, I am Lauren from A Girl and Her Wool, and I'm going to talk more about the business throughout the session. So I have these colorways here, and again, I can't show them all at once, so I will go through them one at a time. So as I'm doing, just comment with which ones you like, or if you like kind of one but wish it had a little bit more of something, let me know. This one is like a gray yellow base, and it has just speckles of grays, blues, and kind of this like burnt orange tan color in there. Again, nothing's named, these are just samples I dyed up this morning, so go for that. And yeah, so overall I tried to do like some fall-ish but also some wintry themed ones, so keep that in mind as I kind of talk through some of these. And I am talking quickly. I realize again, there's a lot to dye in an hour, so I want to make sure we move quickly here. This one, does it have greens in it? Not technically. It does kind of have a greenish overtone to it, I think just because of the blues and yellows playing off of each other, but it is very earthy. So you do kind of get a lot of the earth tones in there. I thought this would be fun, like almost neutral, but not completely neutral. This one is a very different dyeing style. You see a lot of rainbow in there. So I have all of the colors of the rainbow in there and then overlaid it with black. So if you were to work this up, you would get bits of really colorful parts and then bits of black. So I thought that would be a fun, and especially a fun technique to show in this dye with me video. So that's kind of option number 2. Then we have this one that is kind of more muted, really good fall colorway, and it is cloudy, so I apologize about the lighting in here, but pinks and greens, and then I kind of just did an overtone of some browns in there. I've been personally loving the pinks and greens, so had to throw one of those out there, but they this starts with kind of some brighter colors and the brown just kind of mutes it. So that's another option. And then similarly, this one you might say, that looks like it kind of looks a lot of the same. I was dyeing this one up and said, I just want a little bit more pink on it, and I ended up dumping a whole lot of red on it. So this is like an oopsie version of this, but it came out nice. So I figured I'd show it. If you like kind of more holiday Christmas theme, it's got that red green in there. And I'm going quickly, so again, I will take a breath. And hello, everyone saying hello. This last one, I tried to do, again, I did a lot of wintry, kind of muted, more tones, so I wanted to bring a brighter color, but still keep it kind of wintry, so I have that brighter blue-green, and I think it's a little brighter than the camera's showing. And then just also, this one's like a more speckly skein, so speckles of some deep reds and deep blue-grays. So those are the samples. Yes, you have to choose just one. We can see how much we get done in this hour, but if you guys like them, let me know and I will get them up in the shop anyway. I wrote all the recipes down. So, do we have like an overall consensus? No? All right.
They love them all.
They love them all. You guys are the best. Thank you. The black rainbow situation, the blue. All right, I'm gonna ask for final answers and I'm gonna give you guys a minute and I'm gonna just do a little bit of background on my shop while you guys give me final answers. All right, so again, I am a girl in her wool. So I do have a hand-dyed yarn shop, and when I set out to open my shop, which you guys are more than welcome to ask me questions about it, I really wanted to bring something unique. I didn't want to just do the standard formula. And so what I decided to do was offer my skeins in any sizes. And so you can order 100-gram skeins from my shop, but, and I have them here, you can also order, as I drop it, a 5-gram skein all the way up to a 300-gram skein. So this is equivalent to 3 skeins in one, which means less ends to weave in, versus a 5-gram skein here. And this is the same colorway. This one's just re-skeined. And so that's what's kind of unique about my shop. I will sell 50-gram skeins, 65-gram skeins, really them all in different sizes. And I offer mini skein sets, gradients, sock sets, shawl kits, random colorways, one-of-a-kinds, kind of all over the board. So, all right, I'm gonna now read through this. I feel like a lot of number 2s, right? Number 2. Okay, now we have to remember, which was this? This one was number 2, the rainbow. It's so funny because when I was dyeing this up, because it has all of the rainbow colors, I'm shooting myself in the foot by doing this. So I had a feeling this one would win. So we're gonna go with this. And yeah, so let's get to dyeing. I do have the yarn already heated up. The water's already heated up. So let's get going. You guys feel free to ask questions. Again, my husband is here so he can interrupt me. And yeah, let's just get to it. So I'm gonna flip on over to the tripod, hopefully, and get through this. And Lisa just cast on her rose gold mini skein set. I also have, before I flip over, I have samples and I have piles of yarn here. So if you guys want to see anything, let me know. Okay, that worked. Good. Can you still hear me? You can still hear me?
It's delayed.
Oh.
There's like a 10-second delay.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, it switched and we can hear you.
Okay, so we're gonna do some rainbow dyeing. So again, I have a skein in the pot. I have a skein heated up. So this is a skein, 100-gram skein of my sock base. I actually put all of the information about all of my bases in the description of this video. So you are more than welcome to go check out if you are curious about any of my bases, and I can also talk through it if anybody has any questions. I'm just opening up a bunch of the dyes right now. Again, because we did the rainbow one, we're gonna kind of work with a lot of colors here, which is awesome. But I just have to get everything out and ready to go. And while I do that, I just want to say I am loving this kickoff weekend. I have been going through a bit of a crafty rut, and this is giving me all the inspiration that I needed. So thank you everybody who's been hosting, and then other people who are just kind of showing off their projects. It's just been amazing, and I can't wait to go cast on everything. Everything, everything, everything. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go in the order of the rainbow here, and really all I'm gonna be doing is just speckling. So let me grab some of these. So all I use is these little, sorry, I know I'm shaking it, but I'm trying to get it so I can see the camera without turning around. Okay, so you guys can see it anyway. So I use these little spoons, and I use these little tea strainers, and that's how I speckle. So that is my tip and trick on speckling. I'm also gonna say that I'm hosting this through my YouTube channel. I do these dye with me's pretty much like every other week. Oh my gosh, talking and doing this at the same time is gonna be interesting. And so if you like this and you want to see me dye up some of those other mini skeins, here's my plug to subscribe to my channel. And we can do that. So again, I just speckled some of the red. The coloring is going to be okay. It's a little bit darker in real life than what you're seeing. It's kind of blowing it out a little bit, but it is what it is. So you see the red is going on there, and things that I'm just going to talk about throughout it is you see how some of the speckles are sitting on the yarn. Some of the speckles kind of bled into the water, and you guys can't see a lot of that, but I have a really low water level here. And so the speckles that are staying still over there are above the water line, and these over here are kind of dipping below the water line. So that's just what's happening. The dye powder is just bleeding into the water. So that's kind of that difference there. And we're gonna be moving around this skein a lot. So I'm gonna do a couple of colorways or a couple of dye colors, move it around a little bit, get them kind of on other parts of the skein, and then kind of do the same thing again and again. I don't know if there are any questions. Not really, okay. So I'm just doing it, just speckling it all throughout. Again, that rainbow skein just had speckles, and then you'll see kind of what happens with the black at the end. And again, some of those speckles are just gonna sit on top, some bleed. If I want to spread them out a little bit, I can kind of tap on the dye and blend it in a little bit. So that's something else that I can do to just make sure that orange kind of shows.
Someone pointed out that the Instagram and Etsy shop link in the description is incorrect.
Okay, I will.
Just repeat the question.
Oh, so there's a question about the links in the description box. I will, fix it, or if you go to...
I can try and fix it now.
Or you can, okay, or we'll worry about that after. My Etsy shop name is A Girl and Her Wool, and I'm A Girl and Her Wool on Instagram. You can also go to my website, agirlandherwool.com, and you should see some of the links there. I also think if you go to the top of my YouTube channel, there are little handle buttons, but that might just be when you're on the channel page and not on a video. So I will share the links at the end for sure.
Another question from Kellyanne. Is this acid dry and it's a powder?
So the powder in the, yes. So all of the powders I'll kind of show you. Let me show you one. So this is the yellow that I'm about to use. So you can see it's just powder, the same, it looks, it's a powder, and all that you can do is you can blend it in a bottle and make it kind of like if you were tie-dyeing, probably what you're used to with that, and then I just spray it. Or you can use the powder as dye, and that's how speckles happen. It's just the dyes themselves, the little dye powder pieces just sitting on top of the skein. So I'm gonna get some yellow going on there. Some things that are interesting about the dyes too is some of them I find start off pretty dark and lighten up as they heat up in the water. And then some actually darken. If I didn't say darken, so some lighten and some darken. I find the yellow I have to be very careful with because all of a sudden they'll just be like bright yellow in the pan. So again, we're gonna have times where we're gonna be sitting tight while we let dyes kind of sit. Again, I have the red, orange, and yellow in there. I'm going to move the skein around a little bit, get a little bit of the red, orange, and yellow on some other parts, and then also bring in some of the you know, rest of the rainbow. So again, I just moved it around. If you were doing kind of a more consistent colorway, it's just a good way to move it around to make sure you hit on everything. Because I want all these colors kind of in there randomly, that's why I'm doing it too. So yeah, actually I think I am going to just do some of the green, blues, and purples. And just bear with me if you see nothing kind of going on. I'm just switching some of my tea strainers over. And I think my husband is trying to get the links right.
Yep, I am.
All right. So we did red, orange, and yellow. Let's do some green, blue, and purple, and then we'll just keep moving it around and making sure we cover it all up. So this is some green. And again, when I moved it around, some of the red kind of bled in. Certain colorways just take certain colors take some time to set. So I find, you know, reds really need to set. That's why if you buy red yarn and sometimes you go to rinse it, you see some of it bleed out. It's just a color that takes a long time to set and it can, you know, bleed out. So some of it got into the dye bath. I don't think it's really going to show up on the camera too much. I think I just did blue, so I added some of the green, and I'll blend that in so you can see some of the green, some of the blue. And then this purple is one of those colors that you really don't see it right away, and I have been known to overdo purple because you think you haven't added enough, and then all of a sudden it's just purple everywhere. So
Got 3 questions in the chat.
okay, let me look at the questions while that is sitting. And all right, so do you usually dye on one skein or order at a time, or do I do more? So when I do these dye with me videos, I tend to just do one skein at a time because I don't like to waste the time kind of repeating myself over and over again, doing it on multiple skeins. So I will often do multiple skeins at a time if I'm dyeing up batches. But in this case, I am just doing the one at a time. In the yarn pan that's being heated, what temperature? So you can see it's steaming. I don't know if I mumbled that. The question is, what temperature is the water being heated up at? So you can see it steaming. I don't know if you guys can, if my mic is picking it up. There are a little bit of bubbling going on in there. But I try not to make it boiling, so kind of steaming, but not quite at a boil. That will also change color to color. So again, when I want like a deep saturated red, so for example, I have, this is my fall foliage color. You can see it's showing up kind of red-orange, but you can see it's a brighter red. I need the water like boiling in order for that red to kind of take and then also become a bright red. But then but for the most part, I keep it kind of at the simmering type of level. How do I choose which order to add the colors in? So I typically go from, it'll always depend on what you're dyeing, but I'll typically go from lightest to darkest just because it's easier to show darker colors on a lighter background than it is to go and add a lighter color to a darker background. That being said, this one is a rainbow, so I just went in rainbow order. I just want the rainbow kind of mixed around and everything. So to me, that isn't really mattering, but I will do it usually from lightest to darkest. So for example, kind of showing this other skein, I did the pink that you see in there first, I did the green, and then I did an overtone of brown because I wanted to mute that brown down. And again, when we dye up this colorway and we add that black, if I had done the black first, we wouldn't have gotten the rainbow to show up on top of it. So that's kind of why I do it that way. Okay, so my husband edited the links. All right, so I'm gonna just add some reds and stuff around this side now. So I hope that answered people's questions. If you have more, feel free to let me know, or if I did not explain something completely, let me know. Right now I'm being a little bit lazy and I'm not using my tea strainer. So hand dyeing yarn is like any art. You can kind of do what you want with it. So there's no perfect answer. A lot of this has just been from gaining experience and trying things out. So over time I realized I really needed the hot water to make the red set. I like to play around. Every time I order a new dye, I like to just play around with it and see how it reacts to different dyes and how they play together. It's like you develop like almost like an intimate relationship with your dyes and know which ones kind of go together and which ones you like together. So again, I'm just speckling rainbow, all the rainbow colors all over this skein. And it probably is looking, I mean, it does look white. So there are some whiter spots on camera that are not quite as blown out in real life. But this is definitely a rainbowy color. But you're gonna see when I move it around, there's still a lot of white. But I do want all that dye that I just put on there to set. So we will let that set. And you can see actually a lot of the red that I just kind of dumped in there kind of bled out, but it will get sucked up into that skein too. Do I have a favorite base to dye on? So all of my yarns are pretty much superwash yarns. So they really kind of take the dyes similarly. I do find that like speckling is better on sock weight yarn versus like the DK yarn. I really like to speckle more on sock weight yarn or fingering weight yarn just because the thicker yarn, it shows the speckles left. And I'm gonna just switch the camera around so I can maybe illustrate that. Maybe I don't have a good example. So this is one of my colorways called the Gourd Place. It's one of my fall colors. And you can just see because the yarn is thicker, if you're gonna speckle on it, the speckles won't show up as much because, and you can see I'm getting like super warm from the steam. The speckles don't show up necessarily as dots as much. They kind of more just kind of get like sucked in there a little bit more because the yarn is thicker. I just find the speckles sit on top of sock yarn a little bit better. So that's kind of one thing, but really no, I don't mind dyeing on any of my bases more so than the others. How long does it take to set? So again, that depends on the colorway. It also depends on how much yarn is in the pan. So when I'm dyeing minis, I'm not using as much dye, so it will really get kind of set pretty quickly. Usually once I'm done with the skein, I'll let it sit for hours and let it cool. And once it's cool, then I'll go rinse it. But I just really, once the colorway is kind of on there, the water is clear, nothing's bleeding, and I'll show you guys how I can check some of that. Once that's all kind of said and done, I let it sit and cool for quite a few hours. Usually when I'm ready for bed, I'm like, shoot, I gotta go rinse some yarn, and that's when I get it done. Thank you for loving it already, Laura. So let me switch back before I forget so you guys aren't staring at the back of my head while I do this. Also, you guys are watching me be really bad. I always wear my mask, both dyeing and in life now. All right, so we have a nice rainbowy skein. So I just mentioned checking it. So if you see a lot of these speckles, so one, I could pick it up and you can kind of sometimes see the yarn bleed in the same way that you would see it when you're rinsing yarn. You know how sometimes you rinse it and you just see some dye come off of it. But with the speckles, I tend to just kind of tap at them, and if they're set, like so over here, maybe that's not the best place to show it. I'll kind of rearrange it here a little bit. But these blue speckles here, I'm totally dunking those under the water and they're staying as speckles. So that's kind of how I know that they're set. But then again, I let the yarn cool for a little bit just to be sure. Okay, so it looks very rainbowy, but this is why you kind of have to move the skein around, because then you move it around and there's a lot of undyed bits of yarn in there. So again, keep asking your questions. I'm going to keep doing this, and then I can also show samples and yarn if you guys are interested in that. I think we have a lot of red and yellow, so I'm going to get some of the greens and blues back in there. So again, this is like, it's not more complicated, and you see I'm doing like pretty much the same thing over and over again. It's just a lot of colors, so that while not really complicating it, it makes it a little bit more active. So a lot of times when different layers are setting, I'll then go knit for a little bit, or I don't know, go find something else to do while it's sitting. But with this, I'm just kind of trying to keep adding the colors in there. So you move it and then add some more dye so that it's everywhere. Yes, exactly. So that is what I keep doing. So for example, let me show one that I have. So kind of going off the topic of, so you move it around and add some dye so that it's everywhere. That's what I do. So if you look at, and let me switch it back to me so I can kind of show you guys this. So this is one of the colors I showed you guys at the beginning. So you can see it's a really just kind of a speckled color. I have that kind of blue-green, the red, and the blue. And so I had it laying kind of similarly in a pile, speckled it, oops, backwards, speckled it randomly, moved it around, made sure I speckled it everywhere so that the overall skein looks pretty consistent. So everywhere has a lot of those kind of same blues, greens, and reds. So if you knit this up, it wouldn't necessarily pool so much. It would all have the colors everywhere. You can compare that to, and I know this is a mega big skein, but you can compare it to this neon unicorn color, where I have splotches of the teal, splotches of the pink, and kind of bits of this blue in there. And while I moved it around to make sure that I hit the skein everywhere is colored, I didn't necessarily kind of hit it with every color everywhere. So you'll kind of get like kind of the bigger splotches in there. But yes, I always move it around and make sure I hit everything. What is my favorite technique? Speckling, kettle, hand paint. So I dye up a lot of tonals as well, which I'm not really hitting on. When I do kind of tonals, you know, I'm kind of comparing that to the speckling aspect. A lot of times I'll start with dye in the dye bath and then add the skein to it, so you get a more even one color across the board. In terms of which is my favorite, doing it this way where I'm kind of just hitting the color across all of it, it's a lot of times easier to get the formulas repetitive in order to make colors the same, because you're using the colors as they are. And if you watch other dye with me videos that I have, I talk a lot about that. So I showed that bottle, and I'm trying to not hit wires here. But in order to get this same exact color again, I have to measure out the exact amount of dye. Whereas if I'm just speckling, it's kind of like a look type of thing. So it's easier to repeat when I'm just using dyes as they are versus kind of mixing up my own colors. That makes sense, but it's all fun. It's all a moment, feel of the day type of thing. Do you only dye one at a time? How do you dye bigger quantities? So actually this is going to be in an upcoming dye with me video. I'm going to show my technique of doing batch dyeing. So I recommend subscribing, of course, and checking back for that. But I'm showing it in a smaller pan right now so that you can see everything that's happening. But I do have longer pans, and I'll just put multiple skeins in and just do the same thing, just across multiple skeins. How did I learn to dye and what got me interested in dyeing? Let me just check on this. So let me switch it back. I'll talk about that as we kind of move this around and look at it. Okay, so how did I learn to dye? So a lot of it had to do with really in the end just kind of trying it and learning my technique. So I said this at the beginning, but I really think this is an art, and if you try dyeing, you have to find what works for you and what you like and what kind of suits your style. One thing I just want to comment too is there was a lot of red in the pan. You can see the water's clear now. So all that dye kind of got soaked up. So I'm going to quickly try and speckle a bit more so we can get the black going on there, and then it'll be pretty much done, so then we can also chat more. But in terms of how I got into it, I mean, I like watching knitting yarn type of YouTube channels, and so for me it was really a lot of seeing kind of people promoting their own yarn and everything. I was always really interested in how they got their yarn to look like it did, which is why I also like doing these dye with me videos, because it's something that I was always interested in, seeing how these colors came about, so I figure other people are too. And so I always wanted to give it a go, and again, I talked about doing the any size skein. That kind of was something that motivated me as well to kind of start my own thing. I am not somebody who has a large stash, and so when patterns like Find Your Fade came out and it required 7 colors, and then you would use, you know, a little bit of a lot of the skeins, I just was like, there's no way I'm buying 7 skeins of yarn for a shawl and having all of those leftovers. And so that was kind of a motivation too. And then I couldn't sleep one night, and I ended up with like a ton of supplies in my Amazon cart, and the rest is history. And yeah, and again, learning, there are YouTube videos out there, and then kind of just play with it. I mean, it's like other arts, you kind of just have to learn as you go. Always learning. All right, so again, I'm gonna let that sit. I love that your 15-year-old wants to do an Etsy shop. She absolutely should. I mean, I wanna say this too, and I can kind of bring it, you guys watch it set if you wanna stare at the pretty rainbow. I was interested in doing this dyeing, and I know that the yarn dyeing industry is saturated. There's a ton of dyers out there, and everyone has their own look and everyone has their own thing. But there are a lot of yarn dyers out there. And so for a long time, I told myself, like, of course I can't do this. It's oversaturated. What am I doing? Like, there's nothing really to add. And it got to the point where I thought to myself, why do I say that to myself? Why do I put myself down like that? If it's something I'm interested in, of course I should try it and go for it. And so I love seeing that your daughter wants to, or your 15-year-old, sorry, you didn't say if it was a daughter or not, but wants to try an Etsy shop. Go for it. Like, if you're interested in trying something, try it. What's the worst case that can happen? You don't know until you try. So that is my bit. I'm glad I went for it. And I, of course, have a very supportive husband who was like, if you want to try this, go for it. So that's always helpful too. All right, I think the rainbow is going to be pretty good, and I'm going to probably, so something else too is like, you know, yarn is a 3-dimensional, oops, sorry, I hit the tripod. Yarn is 3-dimensional, so even if you do the top and the bottom, you have to think about the sides too. So I always just keep moving it around. You can see there's still a lot of white in there, so I'm gonna put a little bit more color in there, and then I promise we will get to the fun part. Honestly, doing the black part is really quick, so there won't be that too much to see there. And then sometimes you pour a ton of dye in one spot. So also, like I said, I do also have, if we finish this up, I have a huge pile of yarn and samples that we can look at too if you guys want to see anything that's currently in my shop, or yeah, whatever else. Get some more reds in there. What do we think? Am I missing anything? You guys are seeing, I have to say, it's like, you guys see rainbow. It is so much more rainbow in real life. It's getting a little blown out on camera. So picture it even more rainbowy than it is showing. Let's do some more orange. My husband's probably cringing at me saying orange. I am, if you guys want to know a little bit more about me, I currently live outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey. I don't often admit that I live in Jersey, but I just did on the internet. And I'm originally from Long Island, so I am a native New Yorker, but I went to college upstate New York, and people would just comment on my accent all the time. I used to have a really thick Long Island accent, and everyone would just, instead of talking, responding to what I was saying, they would just try to repeat my words back at me. So I worked hard to lose my accent, and so certain words stick, like orange. So still have some Long Island in me. It's true, I couldn't sleep one night and I ended up with a bunch of stuff in my Amazon cart. I mean, I'm not even kidding, that honestly happened.
Put it on a t-shirt.
I went to the University of Rochester up in upstate New York. Native New Yorkers, upstaters, don't call that upstate, but it is. And then I went to graduate school in Syracuse, which is where I met my husband. So he's from Syracuse, and so I think that's why the word orange hits him so hard, is because they are the Syracuse orange up there. If you guys have hang out in Syracuse, like, everyone wears orange. The color orange is everywhere. You can't escape it. So I'm gonna call the rainbow done and start kind of getting some of these dyes put away. And then we're gonna do the black, and you're gonna see how easy that part is, even though it has such a cool effect. It's so easy to do. And then, yeah, we can look at some yarn that I have dyed up already and some samples. And on the school front, if anyone is curious, I studied math. So this is like the complete opposite. I'm such like a mathematical, that's how my brain works type of thing. And so the fact that I'm doing something so like artsy and creative is so interesting to me. So yeah, mathematician by day and hand dyer, plays with color by night. That is my life. What was I gonna do? Black, okay. Right, Laura, I knew you were from Syracuse, but now you live near Philly too, right? Like, we are in a similar boat, I think. How does my husband say orange? Orange.
Orange.
I don't know if you can hear him in the background, but it's orange instead of orange. There are other words that we say differently too that he kind of shakes his head at. But then I think being in Rochester and Syracuse for as many years as I was, and then also being around him, there are words that I think I have in a Syracuse accent. So if you're wondering like what a Syracuse accent, it's like almost Midwestern accent, but not quite. It's really the A's. So like people in Rochester will say things like back. And then my brother will make fun of me because I'll say apparently instead of apparently, which is how Syracuse says it, is more like apparently. I can't believe that I brought this up as like an accents thing. We talk about this all the time in our house. Someone's asked me what type of math did I do, pure or applied? I did pure math. So yeah, I have a bachelor's in math and then a master's in math. Both were applied, but by the time I was in grad school, so now I am an actuary, which is a lot of statistics. So when I was in Syracuse, while it was like a pure math major, I studied a lot of statistics. And if people are wondering what pure versus applied math is, you can think about it like pure math is like all writing and proofs, and if you think of math as like theorems and things like that, versus applied math is more like getting into like engineering and that kind of thing. Anything else? Team Lauren for orange. Uh-oh. He's shaking his head. Anything else before we do the blacks? Any other questions? I don't see any. Okay. So I have, again, it's really just black dye. And I'm just going to pile this up, and we're just going to dump a whole lot of black on top, and that's how you do it. And because it's sitting randomly like this, that's kind of how, if we go back to the original skein. And I also want to say I thought about just offering this rainbow skein as an option too, but threw the black on it. Where's my sample? So if you look at it here, and I'm showing it here, I won't switch the camera back around. It looks like the black is really random. That's because I just piled it up randomly like this, and then I just pour the black on top, and then we just let it sit. So then the dyeing part of this will be done, and we can just look at yarn. So I am grabbing like a ton of black right now, and I'm just going to, it's gonna look like, oh no, you did too much, but just remember there's a lot of yarn sitting underneath there. Okay, ready? And again, I just want to say thanks to everybody who pre-ordered this exclusive colorway before ever knowing what it was going to look like. So thank you everyone who's been shopping in the shop, first of all, but then also for this colorway. So I hope you like it. So already dyed yarn rejects. No, it will go over it. So you can dye layers on top of each other, and that's how you can kind of play with different colors. So I kind of talked about it with this skein. So I did pinks and greens, and then I just did the brown on top of it, and what that did was really mute the colors down. So the black will sit on top of the rainbow. We'll just lose the rainbow that I dyed in this area. It's just now going to be black, so it will just cover it up. Are there white bits as well in the rainbow part of the skein, or on where are there white parts? So probably some of the yarn did stay a little bit white, just because I did speckle it versus doing a whole dye bath. So there probably are little bits of white throughout the skein, yes, if that is the question. Yes. For safety purposes, do not use any of this material for food. This is all special. This stays separate. Whenever you see I'm using tongs, whenever I take tongs out to cook with, my husband asks me if those are the dye tongs, which they do not live in the same drawer. They all stay separately. So yes, anything you use acid dyes with, do not use for food. So this is really it. So you can see a lot of the rainbow there. It's backwards, so I don't know why I'm looking at the camera, but you can see a lot of the rainbow on the outside, and then all of the yarn underneath will stay rainbow. So there's still gonna be a lot of bright rainbow in there, and this is how we get that black sections on it. So again, you see it on this skein here, and I can actually open it up. So you see the bits of the black, but then you can see that there are a lot of the parts of the skein that stay light, and that's just because I just like flung hot water on myself somehow. that because I dunked this one in. Okay, so anyway, I think about it like if you guys ever saw like those penguin movies, how like to stay warm they all huddle and the ones on the inside stay warm. That's like what's going on with the yarn in there. So all the yarn underneath here and on the inside are getting protected by the outside yarn that's now covered in black. So like I said, for people who are asking to set, you can see some of the black bled. It's actually hot enough. So I'm actually turning the heat off. I'm gonna cover it up and then we're gonna get to some other stuff. So hold on.
Did you answer break any?
Will that black break any? No, this black doesn't tend to break, so it will stay pure black. If anyone's wondering what it means for the yarn to break, I can actually show that in a different skein that I showed you guys earlier. That is the pretty lid. So looking back at this first skein, this earthy skein that I did, I talked about like this color in there, and I don't know if you'll see it so well, but you're not going to see it so well. That color does break. So there are like some burnt oranges in there and then some browns in there. And what it means to break is that the dye kind of just like separates into different colors. One of my blues does that, where some pinks will pop out of it. And brown sometimes does that too. Some of the colors kind of break out of it. But the black, I've never seen that happen with. Yeah, and this is the exclusive colorway for the Pigskin Party. And so you will earn extra points for making something with my yarn, but you will also get extra points if you use this colorway. They are listed in my shop. I will post like finished photos of what the skein looks like. And all the people who pre-ordered it, I will be dyeing them up this weekend and getting them out to you. And again, thanks to the people who did pre-order, I will be sending you some mystery minis along as well. Do I have a special place in my house where I dye yarn? So yes, I'm in my kitchen right now, mostly because I needed the table space to have the laptop here too. I wanted my tech support over here to help me, and also all the yarn laid out. I do have a dye studio that I'm in the process of setting up, so it is a functional dye studio and I have been working in there. I'm waiting for an electrician to come in to kind of get some more outlets set up in there so I can do more in there. So yes, I'm in the kitchen right now, but I do move up because being in here is annoying to set it all up and then take it all down and make sure everything's clean and the dyes are all put away, and I have to work around meal times and everything. So I am in the process of finishing my dye studio. Computer science also came out of applied math, true. Nice, a cool math professor. I was always somewhat interested in teaching, but the students annoyed me too much, so didn't become a teacher. It is, dyeing reminds me of a chem lab. It is, I mean, that's what it is. It is definitely a lot of chemistry happening in here. I didn't mention, but I use citric acid. You can probably hear my cat meowing. It is what it is. I soaked the yarn in citric acid and water beforehand, and then I also added citric acid to the pan before adding the yarn. Yes, this will be up on YouTube later. My husband set this up all fancy, so yes, it will be up later. Yes, you can rewatch it. And I do have other Dye With Me videos up there as well that you should check out. All right, so we have like 10 more minutes, and I don't want to make you guys late for the next one, but we did get the yarn dyed, which is awesome. So I have some yarn here that I can show. I also have some samples I can show. If there's anything you're curious about seeing, let me know. Otherwise, I can just kind of run through it, if that sounds good. And if I missed anyone's question, let me know. I think I got everything, so if I missed your question, just if you don't mind re-asking it so I don't have to scroll too much, that would be helpful. So one thing is, I know Lisa mentioned at the beginning, so yes, thank you Jen and Lisa for doing all the hard work you guys do. You have helped my business so much, so I can't not thank you guys enough. Lisa did mention that she was casting on her minis, I think. If not, then I'm just going to talk about it anyway. But what she's talking about is she has a rose gold gradient set. So this is an example of a gradient that I dye up. Rose gold has been one of my most popular things, and this is that gradient set that she's talking about. So I like to dye up gradient sets like this. They're really fun. Just choosing two colors and going from one to the other is a ton of fun. Are there methods where you don't add the citric acid? So one, you could do natural dyeing. So people use like avocado seeds or like indigo leaves, I guess. You could do with that, and then I don't think you need acid. I've never done that. I'm not an expert on natural dyeing. You can also use vinegar instead of citric acid. Anything to do with neon unicorn? I have a shawl that I knit with neon unicorn. So I showed that earlier. That is this colorway. This is on my DK base, and if you missed it, this is a 300-gram skein. So it means less ends to weave in, and that sort. I also have a neon unicorn gradient set. I actually do have one dyed up. I'm gonna send my tech support. It's in the craft room in like that top left cubby. There's a gradient set in there. So we'll see if he can find it. If not, I do have a shawl, so let me grab that. Okay, so I knit the a Stephen West pattern. This is the, oh my gosh, Painting Bricks shawl. And I used my neon unicorn gradient set paired with one of my colorways, denim, which is the kind of outside of the border. So that's that kind of washed out denim navy blue. And his pattern had it where you change colors each kind of row, and I'm sorry if I keep hitting the mic, each row, and I just worked the gradients as it kind of came and ran out of yarn. So that is Neon Unicorn, the gradient set. I have not actually personally knit with kind of Neon Unicorn, the colorway. Yes, so to that point, you can use citric acid, you can use vinegar, you just need an acid to react with the acid dyes. Thank you. This is Neon Unicorn, the gradient set. So it's got that hot pink, and the story behind this is I have a cousin my cousins, I typically send them pictures of colorways and ask them to name it. And so I was doing that, and then one randomly said, I really want a gradient that's hot pink to turquoise blue, and I'm gonna call it Neon Unicorn. And so that's kind of where that came to be. So that's bright colors, and I'm sorry, I'm like getting close to the camera here. I do have fall colors, so I kind of showed these a little bit. This is my pumpkin-y set, so this is called The Gourd Place. If you watch The Good Place, that's a play on that. The Gourd Place, and then it's paired with a matching green called What the Fork. And then this is another fall colorway. This one was new this year. This is Autumn Vibes, so it's just got a lot of purple and greens and roses and just really pretty autumn feels. And then I showed a little bit of fall foliage earlier, which I don't know where I put it now. Oh, here. So it's just got a lot of the colors of fall foliage, but then again, I use kind of like that brown tone to just mute it down and make it more fall. So those are my fall colorways. And I have, sorry, it was like just out of reach. This is The Gourd Place and What the Fork knit into a sock. How do I come up with colorways? So first of all, if you want to go check out the next session starting in a few minutes, thank you for joining. I think it's JD Studios next. So if you're going to log out early, this will be up if you want to catch the end later. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. It flew by. This was a blast. But I'll keep answering questions up until 3 o'clock. So how do I come up with colorways? So sometimes I just play. Again, I dye up a lot of mystery minis, and that's me just playing with the dyes and seeing how they work together. And sometimes some of those minis come up as colorways that I want to do. I also look up photos, so I use Pinterest a lot for photos and use that. If you know, I have a mystery yarn club of the month. I always post a photo and I use that photo as inspiration for the colorway. The October clubs are currently up, and I have to say, I'm not just saying this because we're here, but I'm like stoked about the October colorway. So if you like fall, and I'll give you a hint of oranges and reds and blues, go check out that colorway. Can we still get the neon unicorn gradient I'm fingering? I don't see the listing anymore. So I did show you one, so I do have one in stock, so I'm not sure why I didn't list it, but my shop right now is all in stock only. That's just, I'm trying to get advent calendars out, so I need to keep my dyeing time to the advent calendars. If you see a colorway you like and it's not on a base that you like or a quantity or the size skein that you want, send me a message on Etsy and I'll dye it up. It just helps me that way set realistic processing times versus having my set processing time in Etsy. I do work a full-time job, so if work gets super busy and then I have a ton of custom orders coming in, I can just tell the custom orders I need a few extra days. So if you are interested in Neon Unicorn, just send me a message.
Where do you send message?
On Etsy. You can send me a message on Etsy. My Etsy shop is A Girl and Her Wool. Yeah, my face is nice and warm. I mean, we have 2 more minutes, so I'm gonna just keep showing you guys things if anyone's still here. This is my new base. It's a merino silk base. You can see all the shimmer in it. It is the softest thing ever. And this is a colorway called Majestic, and this is one of my favorite colorways that I dye, Overnight Oats. It's just such a good neutral. It's a very light, creamy brown with just bits of gray in it. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining. And have fun with JD Studios. And I will see you guys all soon. I'll probably just end it right about here. Sound good? Probably, yeah. Okay, thank you guys, and make sure you check out Instagram, A Girl and Her Wool, for the finished skein photos tomorrow once it's dry. So thanks, guys.